Okay, so we are going to take a look at reviewing solving linear equations from Algebra 1 before we move forward with Algebra 2 content. So this is the Solving Linear Equations Worksheet 1, and I'm going to walk you through a few problems to get you started, and then you'll finish off the worksheet for homework. So question 1 here, you can see that you have multiple terms, and when I say term, I mean kind of each chunk of the equation. So the negative 22 is a term, the 7b is a term, the 2 is a term, and the b is a term. So you want to start by combining like terms within each side of the equation if you can. So here on the right-hand side, the 7b and the 1b can be combined to give us 8b. So that equation will look like then a negative 22 equals 8b plus 2. And then you want to isolate your variable term. So variable term means the term with a variable or a letter. So I want to isolate that 8b by moving the 2 to the other side. So it's a plus 2. So I'm going to move it to the other side by subtracting 2 from both sides. So when I do that, on the left-hand side, negative 22 minus 2 will be a negative 24. And just watch those negative signs. Think of it as negative 22 plus negative 2. And that's then going to be equal to 8b on the right-hand side. And then that 8b is 8 times b, so the opposite operation to get rid of that 8 is going to be division. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. And so negative 24 divided by 8 will give us a negative 3 equal to b. Remember that you can always check your work when you're solving equations by plugging your answer back into the original to make sure that you have a true statement. So on the right-hand side, I'd have 7 times negative 3, which is going to be a negative 21. And then negative 21 plus 2 will give me a negative 19. And then negative 19 plus negative 3 does, in fact, match the negative 22 on the left. We're going to jump right down here to question 3. You have a 0 on the left-hand side equals 6v plus 4v. And similar to question 1, you're going to combine your like terms first. So you have like terms on the right-hand side of your equation. So we're going to make this a 0 equals 6v plus 4v is going to give us 10v. And then sometimes students might get stuck here in this case because of that 0 on the left-hand side. Don't let it throw you off. Treat it just like we did in the previous question. So it's 10 times v. So to undo that multiplication, we're going to divide both sides by 10. And then 0 divided by anything is just 0. So 0 divided by 10 is 0 equals v on the right. Again, keeping in mind we can check all of our answers. If we plug that 0 back into the original, 6 times 0 is 0. Plus 4 times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 0 matches the 0 on the left. Okay, so a couple more here. In question 4, you do want to be careful because this negative is attached to that x, so you just don't want to lose track of that negative sign. Just really watch those as you're working through. So you have 8 minus x plus 1 equals 7. Just like before, we can combine like terms on the right-hand side, or I'm sorry, the left-hand side. So the 8 and the 1 we can add together to give us 9. And then again, we watch that negative sign that's attached to that x. So 9 minus x equals 7. Then we can go ahead and move this 9 over to the right-hand side. So subtracting 9 from both sides. You've got a negative x on the left, again, keeping that negative sign. And then 7 minus 9, or again, 7 plus negative 9 is going to be negative 2. So then here you can do one of two things. This negative x is really a negative 1x. So you can divide both sides by negative 1 to get x equals positive 2. Or you can think of it as the opposite of x equals the opposite of 2. So x is going to equal 2. Okay, I'm going to go ahead here and scroll. Some of these problems get a little bit more complicated as we get closer to the back of the worksheet. You've got more terms. So we'll take a look at one that has the distributive property. Let's see if I can get rid of the writing here. Okay, so now that I've gotten rid of that writing over those problems, we'll take a look here at question 12 where you have a distributive property. So anytime you have parentheses like we have here, whatever is directly in front of the parentheses gets distributed. So here it's a negative 6 times m, so that'll be a negative 6m, and then negative 6 times negative 3, so positive 18. And that's then equal to 24 minus 7m. And then here, this is a little different from what we saw in the previous few examples. We don't have any like terms to combine on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side. But what we do have are m terms on either side, and then we have constant terms, so the 18 and the 24 on either side. So we want to move those around to get our like terms together. You can do that in a couple of ways. I like to keep my variable term positive if I can. So if I added 6m to both sides, that's still going to leave me with a negative m over here. So instead of adding the 6m, I'm going to go ahead and add the 7m to both sides. And so that's going to leave me with an m on the left plus 18 equals 24. And now, to solve, I just need to move this 18 over. So I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides. And then when I do that, all that I'm left with on the left-hand side is the m. And then on the right-hand side, the 24 minus 18 is going to leave me with 6. All right, so we're going to take a look at number 15 here. So 15, you can see we've got 2 sets of parentheses. So you're going to have a couple of times that you're going to have to distribute. So you are going to distribute the negative 4 only to that set of parentheses that's immediately following it. And then you're going to distribute the 4, but only to the parentheses that's immediately following it. So that's going to end up looking like a 3v. When we distribute that negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And then negative 4 times v is going to be a negative 4v. On the right-hand side, we're going to distribute the 4. So 4 times 1 is 4. And then 4 times negative 2v is going to be minus 8v. And then we just have that plus v on the end. So here, this v was not in the parentheses, so we don't distribute the 4 to it. Again, the 4 only goes to what's immediately following it in parentheses. So now we can combine like terms on each side of the equation first. So on the left-hand side, I have a 3v and a negative 4v that I want to add together. So that's going to leave me with a negative 1v. And then I have that minus 20. On the right-hand side, I have a negative 8v and a v. So that's going to be a 4 minus 7v. Like I said in the last problem, I do like to keep the variable term positive if I can. So I'm going to add 7v to both sides. This isn't your only option, but it's going to give me a positive variable term on the left. I'll have a positive 6v minus 20 equals 4 on the right. And then at that point, I want to try and isolate this variable term. So I'm going to add the 20 over to the right-hand side. I'm going to go over here because I'm kind of out of space. That'll be then a 6v equals, then I have a 4 there, and I'm adding 20 to it, so 24. And then it's 6 times v, so to eliminate that multiplication, the opposite operation is division. So dividing both sides by 6 will leave me with v equals 4. So you're going to go ahead and finish the worksheet for your assignment, and then you will submit it through the assignments tab on Schoology. And then I'll check your assignment for completeness. We will go over the answers and answer any questions you have in your next synchronous meeting. But if you have questions in the meantime, if you have a few days before your next synchronous meeting, please feel free to reach out to me via email and I can answer them prior to our synchronous meeting.